Okay, I'm gonna do a compression check on actually it's a full drivetrain check on a 10 of 96 Metro 3-cylinder 5-speed. The I didn't slip under the hood. It's 10 of 97, but I think it has OBD2, but I'm not 100% sure because I haven't looked to pull any codes yet. I'm gonna start with a compression check, and then we'll work into the drivetrain and go from there. If you're doing a compression check and using this as a YouTube video for reference for your own car, 150 pounds is a dead engine. Ultimately 170 to 200 depending on what you have a head for. 180's like new, 200 if you have a custom head is ideal, and there's what it should be. And then anything under 170, as long as they're all even all the way down to about $1.60, $1.55, and then you start to see your gas mileage go away. But anything under 150 or right around 150 is just a dead motor. And as a rule of thumb, once you bump under 150, you have an exhaust valve that's starting to burn, or the rings are stuck. They just, because mathematically you can't have lower compression than that unless there's a leak somewhere. That's more significant than just your normal, just normal ring wear, and obviously valves don't have any normal wear, or they're either good or bad. So we'll go through and run a quick compression check on all this, and you're gonna enjoy. Sometimes it's like watching grass grow, but we gotta go through the motions. Number one, as a rule of thumb, will give you your highest compression. Number two, as a rule of thumb, if it doesn't have any burnt valves or anything, number two will be the second highest, and number three will be your third highest compression. And that's simply because we pump the cold water off the radiator across one, so it gets the best cooling. It preheats for two, so it gets a little less cooling. And then number three, when you do have a burnt valve, though, it's the most common in number two. The compression, as a rule of thumb, will be 1, 2, 3. If everything's right with your car, if you have a problem with the car, you're going to see generally 1, 3, and 2. And that's just because of burnt valves. It could always be different for some particular reason. You know, 20,000 miles ago you had a thermostat stick and you torched the motor. The theory, I shouldn't say theory, that science kind of goes away because you've abused the system. Another thing is to make sure you always use a good compression gauge. If you go into Harbor Freight and buy compression gauges, buy 5 of them at a time and take them home and use them, and you'll see each one of them has different compression. Get a good gauge. Okay, so we're at 0. And you want to crank the motor at 10 revolutions so you can hear the air shoot from the cylinder, and you can hear it go 1, 2, 3, except we have this hole plugged, so you're actually hearing ch ch, and then the noise on the compression gauge. Use that noise to count 1, and you're just going to do it 10 times. And that's about it right there. And the magic number is 55, 60, 162-ish. And this motor, I think I was told, and I should have looked first, is at 145,000 miles. So it's at the, it should have the highest compression right now for an old motor. Because generally you can make it out to about 150 before you have a problem. So there was an oil change or two of it actually showing a physical sign. I am guessing the gas mileage is probably off a smidge on the car. We can't use the spark plugs as a reference because they were changed. I'll grab a magnet and pull that out, but they were changed too soon. And they've got a good chocolate color, so the fuel mixture is pretty decent. They're almost to the white, so I would recommend we put a new oxygen sensor in this motor, into this motor. but the plug is too clean to determine if it's got oil consumption or whatnot. Or I should say, how much oil consumption. There we go. Where's the number 2 hole? Also, another thing to do, if you're doing a proper compression check, you're going to want to come underneath the TBO. That's why I have the air cleaner housing off here. And you're going to want to unplug the injector wire going into the throttle body. If you spray fuel in there while you're doing a compression check and it's not running, the fuel's going to wash the cylinders down, and it's going to give you a lower reading than you technically have. Doing an actual compression check with the injector unplugged actually gives us a higher compression ratio than we really have. These numbers technically are probably about 10 pounds higher, but it's an industry standard that we use, so I just kind of go with it. But technically I've got the injector unplugged, so it's throwing oil up on the cylinder walls, and with it being up on the cylinder walls, it's almost as bad as dumping oil down the cylinders. But if I took a teaspoon of oil and put it down each cylinder, you'd probably see this motor has 225 pounds of compression or something, and that's not how you do it. That actually is completely wrong. Throwing oil up from underneath without the motor actually running gives you a smidge higher compression than normal. And so like right here we're at 155 exactly, and for the mileage that's on the car, I expect every one of these cylinders should be somewhere around 150 to 160, and obviously you can kind of see that. And I don't expect the motor to be new. I expect it to actually be worn out like it is at 145,000. Doesn't mean you couldn't continue to drive it. It's just that if you go through it now, in the next 2 or 3 oil changes, you're not doing a burnt valve here. You're going to do a valve job. You get that put back on there, and then you get a ring that starts to stick on it, and then you're taking the head back off in 3 or 4 or 5 oil changes. All of a sudden it turns into a money pit, and you get down the road 25,000 miles, and you'll spend as much money as changing an engine out to a new one as you did if you would have just went through it when it required it. And that's probably the most important thing, is this is all about saving money. Getting good gas mileage goes right down the road with all we're trying to do is save money. So we want to save it on working on the car too. There's no point in ever doing a job twice on the engine. You want to put this thing together. It's like I do like a titanium hone and stuff on them, and ultimately what we're looking for is to not be at the spot at 150,000. We're going to use stainless valves in it. We're going to use different valve stem seals, different fronts and rear main seals and stuff. The idea is to see if we can get out without any oil leaks, out any problems or anything, and see if we can get up to that 250, 300,000 mile range. Alright, we're going to go number 3. And we're right like there at $1.49. So and when you could run through and do the compression check 3 times on it, and you'll be within, the numbers will be 5 up or 5 down as a rule of thumb. So say this one had 145 in it, you could do a compression check and get 150. You get 142. What we're looking for here. So I'm just like plus or minus. And then knowing that I've got the injector unplugged, I know I'm high on the compression anyhow by about 10. So this motor technically has less than $1.50 in each cylinder. It's time to just go through it. My guess is the number 3 valve is starting to burn on it because it was the lowest. It's got some oil leaks on it, just from a lack of maintenance, mostly because the seals are probably hard. being hydraulic lifters, you don't take the valve covers off to do a valve adjustment. It's probably close to the original valve cover gasket, so you just got some seepage on here. Sure, your O-ring is probably rock hard, so it's leaking out, dropping on the tranny. I can see in the front cover here, I'm not going to grab the camera, but the front seal's leaking. And then, you know, I'm going to grab the camera. Well, gosh darn it, I have it plugged in and charging. I don't think I can get close enough to show you where I'm. No, I can't. Maybe I can zoom in a smidge a little here. I don't think I can. Alrighty, just taking a peek underneath the car here. The transmission has oil all over it, but second gear's out in it anyhow, so I know we're going to go through that, but I don't actually think it's low on fluid. I haven't checked, but that's all motor oil. It's too dark. The transmission fluid to be clear. So the rear main seal is out, and the front crank seal's out. We can see that from the other side, and then the cam seal's got a little bit of a leak on it, which is all good for where it's supposed to be at for the mileage. Just normal. I see the axles on the car looking good. I see what you mean by what you were talking about on the cover here that you built. The side water shield, dust shield, whatever you want to call it. I thought you meant when you said Jetta, like you built one that completely covered the underneath of the car, which makes it a nightmare to work on. During refurbishment, we actually removed these for easier access for whatever good they do, and honestly I don't know what that is. They stop people from making inspections on the car when they think there might be something wrong, because you look under the car and you can't see anything, and I just don't believe in that. That's why we do the timing cover and whatnot. I haven't slid back to check the whole exhaust yet, but I can see that the mid-pipe's been changed back, so I assume the exhaust is a couple of years old or so. I don't know what I'm showing here, but you can see the difference in color from the, put my finger in here if I see the color changes on the pipe, so it's been dealt with at some point. And then the inner CV boot on both sides is good. I looked down in the engine compartment, it threw me off. I thought there was something broken on the suspension, because when the car's lifted in the air, the axle touches the, let me back up here. That axle right there touches the cover, and everything's just so grungy. The mounts and everything look good. I don't see any reason why this car isn't in perfect condition for refurbishment. I don't see any rust, which would generally be over right here. Must have been a Washington car the whole time. It's got an O2 sensor that needs to be changed here. I can see some exhaust leaking out of it. So it's broken internally. I haven't checked the check engine light yet, so I don't know if that's a code yet or not, or if it's still electronically working. But as far as the chassis goes here, I would give it a, I'd give it like an AA plus. I don't see any anything that wouldn't make this car just as if it were manufactured today chassis wise. We could put this one back to brand new, and yeah, kind of go from there. I'm on a creeper here, so I can't get too far back to get a good visual, but yeah. And then it looks like we got factory struts up there, so I would assume, oh yeah, it's definitely got a factory number on it. You can see from the sticker. Probably wouldn't be out of line to put some struts in it too. It's probably been 10 years since the struts really worked well. On the brake pads, let me jump up here really quick while I got the camera running. Oh, what I was going to say in a previous video, and then my camera memory went full, is when you see oil coming off the block right here, and I don't see anything running off, so this is probably from the valve cover, but if you ever see a drip right here, it actually runs up the side, and it comes out of this cam pulley, actually runs down and over and drops off. So yours is just starting to seep when I pulled the plug out of it. I see some oil, but if you look down there, you actually see where it's actually throwing oil out. And then you were talking about upgraded pulleys and stuff. You actually have them on this car. It's new enough to that you don't have to worry about that. Big bonus, saves you a few $100s. And then you just put new brake pads in it. I'm just gonna flip around upside down here and make everybody dizzy. The pads are like new, and then the squeak is just because you got, well, you gotta just turn the rotors. Not a big deal. And then we need to lube these calipers up so they slide back and forth like they're supposed to. They're pretty bound up. And then these pads here should have glue on them, so they're glued, so when you hit the brakes they don't shift back and forth. You get a squeak from that as well. And all the bushings for the sway bar and stuff are good. And see what I mean up here? It's a better view of the axle rubbing. And obviously it didn't rub just from me lifting the car off the ground. It rubs when you're going down the road. It's touching it. But we'll just take that stuff off and throw it away. Get it out of the way so you can look in here and do a little better job of service and maintenance, at least inspections over the time. And let's see, let me back up. I've actually got my camera plugged in here, so it's tugging on me with the cord. Yeah, and then the clutch feels like it's a little tight on the adjustment, but that'll go away with the new clutch assembly and whatnot. Yeah, this is going to be a great car. I'm not so worried about, I see this paint flaking up right here, but you told me that you guys re-cleared the hood and stuff when it started to flake off, so I assume that's just you guys spraying the front. I know it's got a rebuilt title, but I don't actually see anywhere where it's wrecked, and yeah, I just don't see where it's been wrecked. I looked a couple of times from the top to the bottom, unless this is all just brand new stuff they put in and somebody got some greasy fingers and they painted it and didn't care because the hood was going to be closed on it. But I don't see anything out of line. It seems to be just about what you explained it to be. And yeah, we'll go from there. I'll try to keep this video short as possible. I'm getting a little long-winded. And oh, we were going to do something with the HIDs, or remind me on the HIDs if we were doing something there. And I'm not going to pop the rears apart because you said you haven't gone through them yet. And if we're doing a refurbishment, they're just getting changed anyhow. It doesn't really matter. During a refurbishment, we throw just about everything away, so it some of it doesn't. Some of it's not worth just taking apart just to take apart and put back together. And just trying to think of anything else. But that pretty much, I think that'll pretty much cover it, and we'll go from there. Like I said, the chassis is in great shape. One of my favorite colors is these. I don't remember what Geo calls it, but Volkswagen calls this color sky blue. It's a great color they used back in the 60s. One of my favorites. Alright, well, let's decide what we're going to do with it and make it happen.